WWE pay-per-views and the concepts behind them heading in to 2023. Now, this year, it seems to be all but certain what pay-per-views we have in front of us. Obviously, we're heading into Crown Jewel, Survivor Series War Games in just a few weeks to about a month time. But after that, well, we're not exactly quite sure. It was mentioned a few weeks ago that WWE's Day 1 pay-per-view, scheduled for January the 1st, in only its second year of existence, was potentially going to be scrapped. WWE still had it on its calendar, and they didn't have tickets yet on sale, but they had the opportunity in their new thing that they're doing where you can buy experiences, and you could buy...
Oh, lovely.
I don't know
great.
if you're familiar with this, the On Priority. Apparently the Super Bowl uses it and other entities use it, where you not just buy tickets, but essentially you buy an experience. And it helps people who maybe don't know how to just get tickets or put it together, like a travel package. Essentially, WWE's always done travel packages for things like WrestleMania, but this case, it's an outside company that puts the travel packages together. They already had them available for Day 1. It's, meeting wrestlers, breakfast with wrestlers, special souvenir, special ticket lanyard, the whole 9 yards. So they had that available for Day 1. And they had Day 1 still on the calendar as of a few days ago. But now, as the rumors said it was potentially going to be scrapped, it has been removed from the WWE calendar. And as that happened, many others brought up the idea of, well, what else could essentially be scrapped?
Yeah.
Triple H and the WWE apparently have been toying with the idea of retooling some pay-per-view concepts. And first, we'll start with the Twitter question, and that's, Day 1 apparently has been canceled. I put that out there on October the 16th, and as of this time, it has been canceled. Are you a fan of there being no pay-per-view between the Survivor Series and the Royal Rumble?
Pretty close.
55%, the majority, though, said, yeah, there being no Day 1 and there being nothing to essentially replace it, I'm a fan of. Brandon, I'll ask you that. From Survivor Series at the end of November until the Royal Rumble, essentially a 2-month span, are you a fan of no pay-per-views?
Yes, I am absolutely on board. I think it's great for the business. I've never been a huge fan of pay-per-view. I think honestly the model they should go with, which I don't see any indications that they're going to go in this route, is maybe do it every other month. Maybe have 6 shows a year.
Well, the issue is that they are scheduled to still have 12, and this is not a WWE aspect as much as this is their agreement with Peacock.
Yeah, which
this is their
sucks.
agreements with the pay-per-view providers. They're going to have 12, well, and I can understand from Peacock's perspective because this is a month-to-month service, and part of the reason, and you are one of them, and I am one of them, part of our subscription, if not the 100% reason we have subscriptions to these things, is for the pay-per-views.
Yeah.
If it's not for the pay-per-view, if they're saying we're not having a pay-per-view this month, I could very well say, all right, well, I'm going to keep my $10 this month and I'll rejoin next month.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Here's how you counter that. If WWE, we're not at the table with WWE and the folks with the Peacock app. But what you could do is you could structure it, and a lot of companies have structured it, where you can pay an annual subscription. You can give a special discount for those who pay 12 months in advance, or you can even do 6 months in advance. You can do different tiers. Maybe it's a quarterly thing where you every 3 months you say, okay, you're gonna and every tier has a special discount where you're gonna get the best deal for if you pay up front, which I do. I pay an annual subscription for Peacock, which gives me the best deal percentage wise, and then you could break it down. It's a slightly cheaper option if you go 6 months, but your savings is still a little bit. It's not as high as if you would have gone 12 months, so on and so forth. I think that's the way you could counteract that, because here's the thing: as a wrestling fan and following it as long as I have, I know you followed it as long even longer than I have since you're a little bit older than me, but being a fan as long as we have, I don't think having 12 pay-per-views is a great formula. I think what they need to do is they need to cut it back in half and make it, you have your core 4, as we always talk about, and then you pick 2 other shows that you feel are, maybe not on that level of the 4, but they could get to that level, and you have 6 shows a year.
Well, one way you could satisfy having the Peacock thing as well is that you could have essentially 6 pay-per-views, like you said, or so, and then have what we kind of saw with Extreme Rules. Extreme Rules was a good example. It was a pay-per-view event, right? But there was no Roman Reigns, there was no World Championship on the line, and we've seen that before. Maybe have some more of these Saturday night main events. Actually not being what they are, the house shows, but actually like a Saturday night main event.
I just thought of something now that you just said that. You know what I was just thinking? So with the model, I was just thinking 6 pay-per-views for WWE. What you could do, maybe not, maybe you can still keep your month-to-month subscriptions. I don't know how much, I would still package it out, maybe 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. What you could do is NXT on the opposite 6 months of the year.
That is good. And if obviously, and that would bring up the viewing for NXT because of the fact that it would be to the WWE audience, it'd be the pay-per-view for that month. Like a lot of people, obviously, I watch a little bit of Halloween Havoc, but I didn't put as much attention on Halloween Havoc or others as I do on Extreme Rules or Survivor Series. Yeah. But if that's the only pay-per-view for that month and that's taking over that time frame on a Saturday night or a Sunday night, I might make more of an interest to watch it. And with the crossover we've been seeing with some of the main talent guys heading down to NXT, it would provide that intrigue. And obviously, if NXT gets back to the level that it was once and where it had takeovers, clearly, I mean, more people would be perfectly fine with that because those takeovers were way more anticipated than the backlashes of the world.
Yeah.
But with that being said, WWE is also reported to maybe be restructuring the pay-per-views in general that they do have and maybe getting rid of some gimmick pay-per-views. I put some out there on our poll. Hell in a Cell, TLC, Elimination Chamber, Money in the Bank. Which pay-per-view of those 4 would you be most happy with saying goodbye, good riddance, don't come back? And 53%, the vast majority, said Hell in a Cell. And what we were reading, through the rumor mill earlier today is that Hell in a Cell is one of those pay-per-views that is on the chopping block and could potentially go away. Now, I never understood this years ago until finally it clicked in my head of why these pay-per-views exist. And they exist for the same reason that the Royal Rumble exists, and that is I can sell tickets for Hell in a Cell a year in advance or 6 months in advance because I'm advertising to the person who's buying tickets what they're going to get. No Mercy, No Way Out, all these other events. You don't know what you're getting. Those are names. Extreme Rules, for example. I knew I was getting Extreme Rules, but what kind of matches? Have no clue. So, you don't necessarily have people jumping out the door to buy tickets like they do for the Royal Rumble, knowing they're going to get the Royal Rumble. But with that being said, as time has gone on, I think WWE is starting to see as well, the Hell in a Cell match, one because it's TVPG and one because we know we're getting Hell in a Cell without the storyline essentially warranting Hell in a Cell. It has kind of watered it down to the point that isn't any longer a selling point. That isn't like what Money in the Bank is, where it is a selling point. Money in the Bank has, of these gimmick pay-per-views, found a way to become a new Royal Rumble, to become a selling point, to be a destination pay-per-view. They tried last year putting it in a stadium for a minute. That did not work out yet, but it is moving to that direction. Well, Hell in a Cell, TLC, and I would even say Elimination Chamber have proven to not really be destination pay-per-views.
Yeah, we don't need names. We don't need names of great matches as the headline of a pay-per-view each month. It just, to me, I've never liked the concept to begin with. I mean, the only one I guess I like is the Royal Rumble, I would say. Well, I guess Survivor Series, now that I think about it. Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess you have more gimmicks than you think. I don't think having, I like the Halloween Havoc kind of style, or like a Backlash. I'm very traditional on that. I guess and actually I was in the minority on that poll that we did because I saw about 54% of our votes were tallied up for Hell in a Cell. I actually picked Elimination Chamber because for me, Elimination Chamber is out of the 4. I think it has the least it lacks that luster out of the 4.
I guess, and the big issue with Elimination Chamber, I think, is where it sits in the calendar, and that sets the bridge between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. And it's very difficult because it is, again, another match that warrants it in the storyline purposes. It kind of warrants, just like Hell in a Cell, needing a match to be elevated to an Elimination Chamber or Hell in a Cell. And it's difficult because you're trying to build up these WrestleMania matches and you're trying not to take the luster off of either the Royal Rumble or WrestleMania. But then you're saying, hey, I know you won the Royal Rumble and that's cool and all, but sometimes, they push it to like Elimination Chamber, then, kind of puts the Royal Rumble winner in jeopardy or peril or something like that. It kind of takes off the importance of the Royal Rumble just a few weeks later. I also can see the positives in the sense of they've been using it more recently to decide number one contenders for the other championships that weren't won by, let's say the Royal Rumble winner goes to face off against the Raw champion. We have a SmackDown Elimination Chamber to kind of decide essentially like another Royal Rumble. Let's put these random people together and the winner will then get on the the other champion at WrestleMania.
Let me ask you this. I'm just curious. What did you vote for the poll? Of that poll?
I would say of all of these, again, as a wrestling fan, I like all of these matches utilized. I like them all used. I like them all showing up. And I'm fine, actually, with Elimination Chamber maybe being more or less a known staple, but the pay-per-view not being named that. Maybe let's name the pay-per-view No Way Out. And that's way...
It's like an innuendo.
It's an innuendo. But remember, before they called it Elimination Chamber, the February pay-per-view for a while, including the ones that had Elimination Chambers, were called No Way Out. And I think for a year or two, they were No Way Outs with Elimination Chambers.
That's a great idea. No Way Out would be a hell of a name.
But what I like about that is then it sets it up that if for some reason someone gets hurt or something can't happen where you can't have an Elimination Chamber, you're not advertising Elimination Chamber. So it's one of those, it's an innuendo that is what you're probably going to get and most likely going to get. You can even kind of advertise that Elimination Chamber is a staple at No Way Out, but you can also toy with it. You can even make it a different match. You can make it an 8-man Elimination Chamber or add elements to a No Way Out, meaning like like we saw with like the Fight Pit. That's not a cage match. It's not Hell in a Cell. It's a hybrid. So you can make like some sort of hybrid match. And again, no one's going to say, how do we have a Fight Pit at Elimination Chamber? You're not calling it Elimination Chamber. You can have a Fight Pit at No Way Out. So, you can change up which match fits the story you're trying to build at that time. Personally, I think TLC is a complete waste because TLC is one of those matches that is unique to specific people, specific tag teams and that they've made famous. And, having just random people in tables, ladders, and chairs matches. And really, what is a chairs match between Braun Strowman and Omos or something? Like, it's not a needed pay-per-view. TLC was my pick as this. I never saw the need for only specific tag team championship matches warrant a TLC match, which is just one match. Okay, so trying to make the whole pay-per-view TLC is silly.
So let's do this. Then. I brought up the theory of maybe doing like a six pay-per-views calendar. Every year you have six shows. So obviously you got Royal Rumble, Mania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series. No, I think Money in the Bank would be number 5. Mm-hmm. What would be your number 6 then? Would you? Would you? I think the next thing you could do is, I think we just figured it out for WWE. The 6th one could be No Way Out. There you go. There's your 6 pay-per-views for the year, and now we just have to figure out.
Remember we gotta have Saudi Arabia pay-per-views thrown in here 2 a year, which do we
have to really call it a pay-per-view for them?
I prefer it. It's funny that we say that. No, I like the model that they're doing now where they're incorporating it in essentially into a pay-per-view spot, because if you're going to be doing and having these big matches, at least now they make somewhat sense. I liked obviously Elimination Chamber last year in Saudi Arabia because we're having Elimination Chamber anyways, so you might as well just get one pay-per-view out of the way. It's much better than them throwing a super show in the middle of March that has Brock Lesnar and Goldberg and all these big huge names, but is not on the pay-per-view calendar. So it's either important or it's not. It's like Brock Lesnar is there and it's Logan Paul versus Roman Reigns for the championship, or it's not.
WWE values the Saudi Arabia shows as much as they do. Okay, here's another idea. You have your core 4 that we mentioned, and then you make 2 out of the other. You make the other 2 that would make 6 under this this model we're talking about. The other shows. So it'd be, you have your core 4 and then the 2, you spread it out, one half of the year, you figure out a way to put Saudi Arabia in one, and then the second
Saudi Arabia is normally like early in the year, and then obviously with Crown Jewel coming up at the end of the year. I was surprised. Elimination Chamber has already been announced that it's going to be in Montreal in February, which I was surprised. I thought it was going to be in Saudi Arabia, similar to what it was last year.
I guess you're going then, right?
So that's probably the truth, that I am probably going to Elimination Chamber. It is on a Saturday night in Montreal in February. So I imagine the Saudi Arabia pay-per-view is probably going to be moved to April. We've seen that before with the Greatest Royal Rumble, I think, and one of the other ones was after WrestleMania. But again, that's good because you're going to have a pay-per-view post-WrestleMania, either early May or late April. you might as well, because where it really hurt with what you were saying of these, like fitting it in there and having all the pay-per-views is when they had the greatest Royal Rumble 2 weeks after WrestleMania and then 1 week before Backlash. So you still had WrestleMania and Backlash, and then you had this massive event between that didn't have proper stories built up, was not really utilizing the current stuff we're seeing on television. It seemed just like a random super show. So at least now I like it because it utilizes the storylines, which makes me want to watch it more because titles are going to change hands and stories are going to progress. Unlike, if it was a bona fide house show where it's not going to affect the future going forward.
I mean, and ideally what I would like with the Saudi Arabia shows, I would like to equate it to like how they do like the non-televised Madison Square Garden shows. That's kind of how I feel about the Saudi Arabia shows. That's just me. I don't know.
I would be fine with that if they were not televised here, but I figure we're past that. Back in the day, they used to have a ton of non-TV MSG shows and stuff like that. But the UK only pay-per-views. But if they're happening and they're on television, then you have to make them integral. You're not going to sell me like back in the day those UK only pay-per-views. Hey, you should buy this on DVD. Why? It looks like a pay-per-view, but it doesn't progress storylines. Championships don't change hands. If you're going to have it, you might, and then you still had 12 pay-per-views a year. That's the issue. But they're still having 6.
But the MSG,
so if they're having these other ones.
Yeah, but the MSG shows that have been non-televised, they've advanced stories though.
They've advanced stories because they've only advanced stories in like a match or two, like a Roman Reigns Brock Lesnar thing.
It still gives you enough intrigue to buy in and have and sell it, and you could still, because the Saudi Arabian the folks there, they'll pay top dollar, which they have paid top dollar to get the big names, which means you could still bring in the Brock Lesnars, the Goldbergs, the
I guess what
names.
I like it recently with Saudi Arabia is the fact that, like you said, the Saudi Arabia pay-per-views incorporated beforehand made it like that there was like 14 or 15 pay-per-views. Now it's nice that they're saying, you know what, at least let's incorporate into the regular pay-per-view. So between WrestleMania and the Royal Rumble last year, we didn't have a pay-per-view and a Saudi pay-per-view. We just had the one. It did the justice of both pay-per-views. It was in Saudi Arabia, which is good because then it means that there was no North America thing between Royal Rumble and WrestleMania that took people's attentions, as well as it progressed the storyline and made it so, like I said, it didn't bulk up. Because the road to WrestleMania, it's crazy to think we're talking at the start of this, there's no pay-per-view between Survivor Series and Royal Rumble now. And as of right now, the Royal Rumble might as well be WrestleMania because that's going to have a longer build up between pay-per-views than WrestleMania does when you throw these roadblocks and these, MSG shows and these Elimination Chambers and Saudi shows.
Do you have a problem with it though? Do you have a problem? I don't.
You don't have a problem with, WrestleMania only being like we saw a couple years ago, a week after a pay-per-view?
Oh, no. I'm saying, I like having these gaps.
I know I do like, that's what I'm saying. So that's why I kind of like the Saudi thing being it, because I don't want more junk. I don't want a February pay-per-view, a March pay-per-view, and then WrestleMania.
So you don't mind it being kind of in the middle somewhere?
I like the Royal Rumble, then maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, you got this Elimination Chamber, and then boom, a good month and a half without a pay-per-view.
Yeah, I'm in the category where I like having every other month. I just think for me, in how I look at the business, and everybody has their own. Like again, I've always used the example. You can go to your local ice cream shop and you can pick whatever flavor you want. Me, how I like watching wrestling is advancing storylines. Yes, cool. You can do some really cool moves, but can you tell me a good story? That's kind of how I look at it. Like I want to see like. If you're only going to have a few weeks to build up a potential story that leads up to the payoff at the next pay-per-view, 3 weeks or 4 weeks is not long enough for me. I need another 3-4 weeks to build this up, so it gives it more time to marinate, and then you can really have the good blow off at the pay-per-view. That's just how I look at it.
We're gonna kind of add more to this topic. I think this would be great for maybe next week to add more to this topic because of another pay-per-view WWE's thinking of bringing back that you talk about needs storylines and needs that kind of intrigue to present. But we'll save that one. Might be known as King of the. You can fill in the rest there.
Yeah.
So that pay-per-view. But I find it very intriguing. One last thing on this is that Elimination Chamber has been announced that it's going to be in Montreal. Have they picked Montreal? They said based off of their recent Canadian tour and the success from it, which is surprising that we're picking pay-per-views based off of things that we already like. This isn't AEW. We've been to these places before. It's weird that they're kind of we had success in Canada. Like you just had probably the typical success that you always do.
Yeah.
Nothing seems to have changed in that sense. And it's weird that what I'm picking out of the Elimination Chamber is this is going to be a pay-per-view and where they're going to have SmackDown there on Friday, and then the pay-per-view on Saturday. And I think that's very strange that they picked Elimination Chamber to essentially be that quote-unquote destination pay-per-view, because we've argued about this before, that outside of WrestleMania, the Royal Rumble the night before in San Antonio is not in San Antonio, or Extreme Rules was not in Philadelphia, or Survivor Series is not in Boston, or SummerSlam in Nashville, where you're in this huge stadium the night before, was not in Nashville. You know what I mean? So it's weird that they're putting SmackDown with Elimination Chamber in back-to-back nights, because that's not, that's an event where I'd go to Elimination Chamber. I wouldn't necessarily need to make the weekend out of it, per se. So hopefully it's successful in the sense that come this upcoming year at SummerSlam, they put them together. And I'm not normally a fan of like everything being together and Brooklyn hosting 4 straight nights of wrestling. You know what I mean? But when it comes to these big SummerSlams and Survivor Series, you want to make them destinations. You want to make a weekend out of it, make some bigger deal. Well, then you got to put SmackDowns and Raws book up against them. You got to have more than just Survivor Series on Saturday night. You got to have the SmackDowns and the Raws, because the SmackDowns and the Raws that encourage.
Just make it a long weekend. Three shows. You got SmackDown. You got SmackDown, the show, the pay-per-view itself, and then you got Raw.
And that encourages other companies to then come in that weekend, run shows. That encourages WWE to set up shop with like a superstore where they got tons of merchandise and fan meet and greets, and it makes a bigger deal.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It was just strange to me a couple years ago at SummerSlam when I went to Las Vegas, where it essentially felt like a big deal. It felt like that year's WrestleMania due to the capacity issues of the previous year's WrestleManias. But yet the night before SmackDown was in Phoenix, and the night after Raw was in Denver. And it's like, wait, hold on. You're expecting 50, 60,000 people at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. You're making this a big deal. But yet the day of the pay-per-views, a lot of the wrestlers are just getting there. Yeah. And then as soon as their matches are over, they're taking off.
They're going to the next town.
Yeah. So like you're not giving this the WrestleMania treatment per se, as if they're just here for the night and they're taking off like it's a house show. So
yeah.
With that being said, though, we will talk, like I said, maybe some more about the ideas for the return of King of the Ring. That's been something, obviously, in the past that has been up and down in the world of WWE. But Elimination Chamber will be in Montreal. We know that in the Royal Rumble. So we know Royal Rumble in San Antonio. Montreal's got Elimination Chamber, and WrestleMania is in LA. But as for anywhere else, and the pay-per-view calendar for WWE, it is, according to most rumors, TBD.